Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're watching this video. Okay, it's Mr. Conley here for your Imedia instalment. Before we start, just quick go over the instructions. You will need to take notes, so grab yourself a piece of paper. Okay, you will need to draw diagrams, so you grab a pencil and a rubber, maybe some colouring pencils. You will be asked to pause the video while you complete tasks. You must keep your notes safe because you'll use them as a revision aid for the exam. And once you've completed the lesson, I want you to take a photograph of your notes and I want you to then upload them either to Teams via the assignment or you can email them to my school email so I can mark them. Okay, so let's begin. Now today we're looking at SWI Evaluations. Okay, so SWI stands for Strengths, Weaknesses and Improvements. Now you always are expected when you do the coursework units to do an evaluation. Okay, there is also an expectation when you do the exam that you will also do an evaluation where you will evaluate a product and talk about its strengths, its weaknesses and how it can improve. So this is a really important skill, and generally when you're asked to do this in the exam there are also high marked questions, so it's really worth being able to do this effectively so you can bank the maximum marks to help you secure your grade in the exam. Okay, so if you want to now put today's date and the title SWI Evaluations, or if you're going to struggle to remember SWI, you can write Strengths, Weaknesses and Improvement Evaluations. Okay, our hot question is, how do I analyse strengths, weaknesses and suggest improvements to pre-production documents? And we need to, our key learning objective is to be able to identify strengths, weaknesses and suggest improvements to pre-production documents. Okay, so moving on. Let's start off by having a look at some past exam questions. So this first one, you've been given a mind map and it says discuss the suitability of the mind map in figure 2 as a pre-production document in aiding the game. Developers create the computer game. You should include any areas for improvement. Right, it's worth 10 marks. Okay, 10 marks. So the whole exam paper is out of 60 marks altogether. So it's a big chunk. Okay, of the exam paper overall. And you'll always know when it's this high level question where it says at the bottom, the quality of written communication will be assessed in your answer to this question. Now it's actually currently legislated that in every exam that's set at GCSE level and A level, that there needs to be a question that tests the quality of your written communication. So you'll always see in any exam that you sit this type of question. Okay, now let's have a look at another one. So we've got here, we've been given this time a storyboard. Discuss the suitability of the content of the storyboard in figure 3 for the camera crew. You should include strengths, weaknesses and any improvements. Okay, and then there's the legal statement. The quality of the written communication will be assessed to your answer in this question. This time it's worth 12 marks. Okay, here's another one. So this time you've been given a mood board. Discuss the suitability of the Victorian era section mood board in figure 2. You should include strengths, weaknesses and any areas for improvement. Again, there's the legal statement, and again, this time it's worth 12 marks. Okay, so we'll go over today's outcomes. Our surface learning outcome is to identify strengths, weaknesses, improvements in a pre-production document. Our deep learning outcome is to be able to describe why these are strengths, why they are weaknesses, and describe what improvements you might make based on prior knowledge. And to make good progress, okay, you should be able to answer at least one of the past exam questions by the end of the lesson. Okay, so we're going to watch a little video clip now. Okay, just bear in mind that you must talk strengths, weaknesses and improvements in this answer. This is a must. Okay, so I'll watch a video clip now.
Okay, so let's look at question 9. Always at the end of these papers, they give you something physical to do, and then you have to write a sort of report on it. So question 9 is based on figure 3. Figure 3 is the second draft of the storyboard for the opening title sequence of the webisodes for the Velocity Girl animation sequence. So we're talking about title sequences. Do your candidates know what that is? Velocity Girl. This storyboard will be given to the animator who will create the title sequence. So we can look at what's on it, and then the candidates are expected to answer the following question. Discuss the suitability of the storyboard for the opening title sequence. You should include any areas for improvement. So they're looking for the suitability, strengths, weaknesses, improvements. And actually that's been the same in the last couple of papers. They've asked for strengths, weaknesses and improvements. So the candidate, if we look at the mark scheme, limited understanding of the use of a storyboard, answers will be vague. Second one, it's strengths and or weaknesses, and some improvements may be suggested. So if they've given some strengths and they don't really mention any improvements, they can still move up into level 2. And then candidates provide excellent understanding. It'll be very clear. Strengths and weaknesses, equal weighting, well thought through improvements. So the first thing to do when looking at marking this is what level does it fit in? Level 1, level 2, level 3. Answers may include reference to composition, layout, clarity, use of colours, etc., all on there. So let's read this candidate's response and see what they have said. There are a few strengths. It tells you what colours to use, and they have pictures to go with it. They have a time duration added. There are some weaknesses: better pictures for better work, add description, needs detail, add script. Okay, so this is a level 1 response. The candidate lists, so if we look at the mark scheme, really it's basically a list. The candidate lists strengths and weaknesses of the storyboard, showing some understanding of the use of a storyboard, but the weaknesses, however, are not all relevant. Hence, it is placed in the middle of level 1. So we give this one a 3. But still, it's 3, and the candidate didn't write a great deal. Let's go on to the next one. Overall, the storyboard shows the basic objective on what it's about within 6 slides and describes what happens on each and every slide. It even explains what colours are needed for each slide, which could be a good use for the animator, giving him or her, I notice her got some screen time there, a short time on discussing about the colour. The time duration of each slide is also good for the animator because he or she knows how much frames is needed. So there's the strengths. The things that could be improved is maybe to add what type of sound or music that could be used in the scene. Otherwise, the animator would leave this as a later discussion. Another thing to improve is probably to add what is going on in the scene. The animator requires stage direction in order to create the scene, and that's it. So she's mentioned strength, she's mentioned a weakness, and she's given an improvement. Sometimes they do blur that a little. I mean, this is a level 3 answer. The candidate refers to the correct target audience for the storyboard, as well as providing both strengths and weaknesses. The weaknesses are referred to within the context of the suggested improvements. The answer is actually well written. I understand it. That's the main thing. Let's have a look at the next candidate. The storyboard is good and suitable because it tells us what colours they want on the setting and text. Also, the images they have added are useful because we get an idea of what they want the Velocity Girl series to look like. Another thing that makes the storyboard useful is that they have added how long they want each scene to be. So there you go, here's all your strengths. This is suitable because it helps us know how long the series will last and how fast it will flow. The final thing that makes the storyboard suitable is that it includes text on the images. That way we will know what the candidates of Velocity Girl are saying and doing. However, this storyboard could be improved. To help improve it, more suitable and make more information. To do this, the creator needs to add information about the camera angles. This will help to see what mood and atmosphere they are trying to create, and it will help the series creators understand how the text and images will need to be placed. Another thing that could be added is lighting shot information. This also helps create mood and atmosphere in even more detail. I mean, I could see how that could relate to an animator. Adding both of these things will help make the series even more suitable because it will allow people to get a better understanding of what Velocity Girl is like, and it will help see what type of comic series it is. Now, there's a lot written there, but the response is actually, according to the mark scheme, it's level 2. There are good strengths and weaknesses improvements covered. However, the candidate does not clearly refer to the correct target audience of the storyboard, the animators. So they do mention creator in the middle of the response, but the context of who the creator refers to is not clear. So the creator of the storyboard is the animation. So they're not sort of saying this could help the animators because that's basically, this is an 8. So this scored an 8, this one. Let's look at another one. I am going to discuss the suitability of the storyboard and talk about, so generic opening sentence. The storyboard is good because it included descriptive text to help the animator, there you go, referring to the animator, know what to do when making the opening sequence. It includes background colors, text colors, time duration, as well as any other details needed. By doing this, it gives the animator a visual idea of what it would look like if it was playing. The storyboard also includes a few pictures. This also helps the animator as it is a starting point of what the clip is going to look like. This is good because it helps the animator create the clip. However, the storyboard's pictures are not very detailed, okay? Although it includes descriptive information, it does not show a lot of detail on the pictures. Not because of this, it could make it harder for the animator to design the same of the clip should look like. Whatever. As well as some of the picture spaces can only have text on them, and you see, it's quite I mean, it's good, and it is a level 3 answer, but the target audience is referred to, and there are both strengths and weaknesses. The improvements are weak, and so the answer is placed at the bottom end of the marking band for that one. And then to improve the opening sequence, I would use the color of the font the same 2nd, 4th, and 5th box. Now, I've noticed that a lot of candidates, even in the most recent exams, they're talking about each individual box. You do not need to do that. I would also add color to the middle lines. The storyboard is suitable because it shows the company who make the animation. The rest of the answer is pretty clear. It's going to be a level 1 answer. A large proportion of the answer is concerned with improving the colors, not the usability of the storyboard for the animators. The response is well written with no grammar and spelling issues affecting the understanding of what is written. But that's really all that can be said about it, really. You know, it's not talking about the animators. Your candidates need to read the question. So discuss the suitability of the storyboard for the opening sequence for the animation series. You should include any areas for improvement. The thing is, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? Because the exam board's not specifically saying, you know, talk to the animators and tell them how it's helpful, which is a bit naughty. But you get the idea that it's for the target audience on this. And that concludes the January 2018 R081.
Okay, so just remember, when you do these types of answers, you must talk strengths, weaknesses, and improvements. Okay, this is a must.
Okay, so look.
So just to quickly go over what he was talking about there in the video, you can see this is how the mark scheme is structured. So it's a 12-mark question. Okay. The things you could talk about, and generally when you ask to review, these are things that would always appear on all the mark schemes. So you think about composition, how the image has been created, the colours, the effects that have been used, the layout, the clarity, how clear is the text, how easy is it to read, use of colours, fitness for purpose, does it do what it's supposed to do, the font type and the styles, are they suitable, can they be read, link back to clarity, order of boards, transitions, okay, if it's going from one scene to the next, virtual camera movement, suitability for a target audience, okay, and suitability for the client. Okay, so, warning. You must talk strengths, weaknesses, and improvements in this answer. It is a must. Okay, so this is a visualization diagram of a new leaflet. Good, isn't it? Okay, it's not very good. Okay, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to just pause the video. Can you bullet point its strengths? Bullet point its weaknesses? bullet point what you would do to improve it. Okay, so remember strengths, weaknesses, improvements. Just pause the video and have a go at that now. Okay, so just remember what we had previously. Okay, so remember what we said: composition, layout, clarity, use of colours, fitness for purpose, all these things. Now, if a visualization diagram, okay, you can see it's easy to see what the negatives are because it's not very clear, but it has got a layout, it has got some content there. Okay, so maybe they're what you could talk about when you're talking about the strengths. Weaknesses are easy because there's not enough detail. Okay, there isn't enough detail, there's not enough for a designer to be able to interpret what is trying to be set out on the visualization diagram. And then obviously the improvements, you could individually state different reasons on how you would improve it. Okay, so this is a mood board for a new TV advert for a holiday clothes sale. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video now, and for the mood board I want you to write down its strengths, write down its weaknesses, and write down what you would do to improve it. Now remember, okay, it is going to be worth 12 marks. So as a rule, if you could come up with 4 strengths, 4 weaknesses, okay, then for each of the weaknesses, you should have wrote 4 of them, you could write down how you could improve it. You could be aiming to get to that 12 mark position. Okay, so pause the video, have a go. Okay, so obviously some strengths. We have got a collection of different images. Okay, we have got examples of fonts. Some weaknesses. Okay, for a start, it's black and white. Okay, although it does obviously state what the colour scheme would be. Well, no, sorry, it doesn't state what the colour scheme would be. It says the colour scheme from the client brief. It'd be nice to actually see the colour scheme on the mood board. It's not laid out in a very organised way. Okay, I don't actually see any images that are linked to clothes. So these are maybe things you could include. Then obviously, again, when you talk about your improvements, you should have listed down 4 weaknesses. Just take each weakness and then write how you would improve it. Okay, so our surface learning outcome was to identify strengths, weaknesses, improvements in a pre-production document. Our deep learning outcome is to be able to describe why these are strengths, why they're weaknesses, and describe what improvements you might make based on prior knowledge. Now remember, by the end of the lesson, I would like you to be able to answer these SWI questions confidently. So, I'm going to give you 10 minutes now, and I'd like you to have a go at this question. So, you've been given a storyboard, okay, for a 30-second film. The storyboard will be given to a camera crew who will create the film. Okay, so discuss the suitability of the content of the storyboard in figure 3 for the camera crew. So remember, you're discussing how good, how effective is this storyboard to be given to a camera crew. You should include strengths, weaknesses, and improvements. Okay, now take it, it's going to be worth 12 marks. So try to have 4 strengths, 4 improvements, sorry, 4 strengths, 4 weaknesses, and then for each of the weaknesses you then need to write an improvement. Okay, so there should be 12 different points altogether in your evaluation. Okay, pause the video and have a go. Okay, so let's have a quick look through the mark scheme. Okay, so what you'll notice, it's very similar to the one you've just looked at previously in the example. So answers may include reference to composition, layout of storyboard, clarity, use of colours to illustrate, fitness for purpose, order of boards and panels, transitions, camera movement, panel numbers, colours of film, suitability for target audience, so the camera crew. Try not to say production team as it's too vague, and suitability for the client. Subject-specific terminology covers both terminology related to the creation of the storyboard as well as that related to environmental change. So, you've got here the criteria for a level 1, you've got here for the criteria for level 2, and you've got here the criteria for level 3.
The sunny spells for most of the youth.
Sorry, I do apologise. You've got the criteria here for level 3. So what I would expect to see if you're going to have a strong level 3 answer, I would expect to see 4 strengths and 4 weaknesses which mention these items, but remember link back to the camera crew, because you were right, you were writing this answer specifically for the camera crew. You should then have your 4 weaknesses, and your 4 weaknesses should then be explained how you would improve them. Now, if you can do that and you can do it successfully and you've linked back to these items, you'll be at the top of that level 3 mark band. Okay, so give yourself a mark, give it a mark out of 12. So, to go over what we've looked at today, we should now be able to identify strengths, weaknesses, and improvements in a pre-production document. Okay, you should be able to write this as a written evaluation. You should be able to describe why these are strengths, why there are weaknesses, and describe what improvements you might make based on prior knowledge. And hopefully now, after looking at those examples, you can all answer past exam questions based on what you've covered today. Now, do remember that this is the highest marked question, the highest value question on the exam paper. So it is really important that you can answer these types of questions effectively. And if you can, it goes a long way towards securing your mark. Okay, thank you for listening. Make sure you now either take a photograph of your notes, but can you either upload it to Teams, to the assignment, or if you struggle with Teams, you can take a photograph and email me your notes. Okay, see you next time. Stay safe. Mr. Godley out.